Hello and welcome back to Bitesize Boxing. Apologies again for the really sporadic uploads as of recent. I did say last week, I think I uploaded a video sort of mid last week, said look, there's going to be more content coming, and that was always the plan. I had plans for the Josh Kelly fight, a prediction video for that to come. Also for, of course, the Teo versus Shakur fight that's coming up this weekend. All of that was planned and then got hit with flu. So it's been one of those things where it's just been ridiculously stop-start on this channel, and it's really not really been through any fault of my own, unfortunately. It's been through a culmination of illness, work, and just other commitments and family and all this kind of stuff. So hopefully now I'm on the mend, we should be able to get somewhere with this. But I couldn't not talk about the big news today, and that is that Tyson Fury has come out of retirement. Of course, we all knew this was coming, to fight Arslanbek Makhmudov. Now, this was a fight that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, that it was being rumoured, that we were hearing on the grapevine that this was a potential fight that was coming. And it has now been scheduled for somewhere in the United Kingdom. I don't think a venue has been actually given concrete yet, on Netflix in April. So what do we think about this one? I think it's an interesting fight. I actually think this is somewhat out of character for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, if he's having comeback fights, generally speaking, tends to go for more soft touches. I think of the Seferi comeback, you know, the Pianetta, those kind of things. You know, if Tyson Fury is coming off of, obviously he's never come off of like back-to-back losses before, but if he's coming off of, say, a layoff like this, he tends to go in a bit more soft and he tends to really ease his way back in. Now, I think that the reason he's not doing this, because, you know, Makhmudov is not no great shakes, but he's not a bad fighter. I think the reason he's going in, not necessarily in the deep end, but in against a relatively dangerous guy, I suppose, in Makhmudov, is because of his age. I think people forget Tyson Fury is nearly 40 years old. This is no spring chicken. So Tyson Fury really hasn't got time to go in and have a couple of warm-up fights and see how he feels, and particularly a guy of Fury's profile, if he has, say, 2 warm-up fights, that will be, what, April or maybe September, and then what's that? He's not going into a big fight until maybe December, maybe even early next year. I mean, he hasn't got that time to, you know, he just hasn't got the time to do that. So he was always going to have to go in there against someone who was half decent. But I think Makhmudov is an interesting fight. Again, I don't think Arslanbek Makhmudov is a great fighter. I don't think he's, you know, any great shakes, as I said earlier. He's very stiff, he's very robotic, he's quite slow, he's very upright. You know, he's very limited in terms of, you know, he can't, you know, he's not got a million strings to his bow. He's quite a caveman-esque fighter. He can fight going forward, but that's really it. Yes, against Dave Allen, he did sort of pop out a back foot at points in that fight. But again, that was against Dave Allen. You know, these fighters are levels apart here in Tyson Fury and Dave Allen. Just because you can show a back foot game against Dave Allen, that doesn't mean that you can show that up in the upper echelons. And the fact that he has never shown that before at any given level probably shows that it isn't really there at a decent level. Most half-decent heavyweights can pop a back foot against Dave Allen, let's be fair. You know, Dave Allen is very crude, he's good at a level, but he's not the kind of guy, you know, he's easy to outbox is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not surprised that a guy with, you know, Arslanbek Makhmudov's amateur pedigree was able to outbox Dave Allen. So what I'm saying is that going in there against a Tyson Fury fight, he is probably going to go back to that marauding, come-forward style. And I'd expect Tyson Fury to revert to type and go for that back foot fight style that he's so known for. But I don't think this is necessarily a walk in the park for Tyson Fury, because for me, Tyson Fury physically has been very clearly declining for years. I mean, it still astounds me how people don't see the decline. I think they do maybe a bit more now, but Tyson Fury's physical decline has been going on for the last 10 years, no, 11 years. Since that Klitschko fight in 2015, he's never looked the same physically since. I mean, on the scale, I mean, his body, of course, he blew up in weight and then lost all the weight. Physically, his body looks worse every single year since then. But on top of that, the way he moves, the way he goes and glides around the ring, the movement, you know, particularly the foot speed, has slowed down considerably in the last few years. And look, Tyson Fury's foot speed slowed down, you know, again, about 10 years ago. After he shifted that weight, he was never able to move in the ring again quite how he was before then. But if you look at that Otto Wallin fight, right, which was a wake-up call for Fury, he was slowing down, right? If you look at the Otto Wallin performance compared to Klitschko performance, he had slowed down noticeably between those two performances. If you then go and look at that performance, compare it even to a good performance like the second Deontay Wilder fight, again, between that while in fight and the second Wilder fight, he'd very clearly slowed down in the foot speed department, which is why he had to change his style. Tyson Fury even gave interviews around that time saying that the adaptation in the style, the transition towards the Kronk gym and working with Sugar Hill Stewart, it wasn't because he was, really wanted to be aggressive and really wanted to put on exciting performances. It wasn't that. It was that the back foot style was failing him. His legs were going. The abuse that he put his body through, he wasn't able to do it anymore. The lateral movement as well. This is another thing that no one seems to pick up on. Look at the movement, the shimmies, the feints. They have all slowed down dramatically over the last few years. So this is a Tyson Fury who is physically far more compromised than he was. And again, most fighters who are nearly 40 are going to be physically nowhere near the man they were in their mid-20s. That's understandable. But when you've abused your body the way Fury has done and continues to do so, I mean, he's in camp now, training out in Thailand, I believe, and he looks a mess. He's been clearly not living the life. He looks absolutely dreadful in terms of physically. And again, his body looks worse now than it did a year ago. And a year ago it looked worse than it did 2 years ago. And 2 years ago it looked worse than it did 3 years ago, etc. I mean just physically how his body looks. It's sagging. It looks like an old man's body. So he's clearly not looked after himself. And as I say, this is a guy who's had injuries in camp and all this kind of thing. So I think physically, Fury is rotting on the vine and has been for a long time. So I say all of that to say this. Arslanbek Makhmudov is not a great fighter. Arslanbek Makhmudov is a limited fighter. But I truly believe Tyson Fury is far more physically compromised than the general public and the wider public believe. And that will show up in a performance at some point. I sat down with Ade Oladipo many moons ago. It must have been 6 or 7 years ago. And we were talking about Tyson Fury. And I said at some point in the next few years, I didn't say it was going to be in the next 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, but I said at some point in the next few years, if this guy keeps on fighting for the next 5 or 10 years, there will be a performance where he just gets in there and he's fallen off a cliff and he gets beaten by someone he shouldn't be beaten by. That was my opinion then, and that hasn't changed. I still feel that way. People will point to the Usyk performances and say, well, look, he really got up for those fights and he looked good in those fights, particularly in spots in that first fight. And I would agree with you. But I think that he's had to summon almost everything he has to get those performances out there, particularly that first performance, and it still wasn't good enough. So for me, I think Tyson Fury, as I say, I don't think he's necessarily going to lose this fight, but I think there's danger there because for me, I just think that there is a clearly regression there physically from Fury, and you'll see it in the ring. You will see it in there when he goes in there against Makhmudov, that he's not feinting anywhere near as much. And as I say, for me, it's as well, it's not just the foot movement, which is clearly slowed, it's that lateral movement. You look in there against the first fight against Wilder, the fight against Klitschko, he's shimmying with the shoulders, he's bobbing, he's weaving, and defensively, he was pretty good. He was never a Pernell Whitaker, but he was able to bob and dip and slide, which he just can't do anymore. And when he does do it, it's a lot more awkward and stationary. But yeah, you let me know what you think. Sorry, I'm struggling here. Sorry, I'll probably have to cut this one here. I'm struggling a little bit, as you can see. But I did just want to get that out there. I think this is an interesting fight. And again, I don't think it's necessarily a foregone conclusion. I don't expect him to necessarily lose to Makhmudov. But I think it could be tough in spots in there. If Fury isn't on it 100%, and I don't think he will be. I don't think he ever will be. I think the best Fury that we were ever going to see, we've long already seen. It's long been and gone. So you let me know what you think. I'll be interested to know. And yeah, do you think Makhmudov can spring the upset? And if not, do you think there's someone maybe further down the line, maybe a Fabio Wardley, who's just too fresh for Fury? What do you think? I'll be interested to know. And yeah, take it easy, guys. Cheers.